Right, it's 4:02 and I'm actually gonna be leaving here soon, but I'm not going home just yet. I am going to go to an elementary school in my district where I know the principal pretty well because she was the assistant principal here last year. And I'm going to take a look at that school's guided reading room where they have all these level books because I would like to try and do a scaled down version of guided reading at the middle school level during my universal access time, which is basically my small group time with my students, because it's an easier way for me to address some of the comprehension needs in a short spurt of time, as opposed to doing whole novel studies. I honestly don't have time to do that. So she has been kind enough to let me come take a look and see if there's a couple of sets that I can borrow and for a few days and then drop them off. So I'm gonna leave and do that. And then I'm gonna go home and potentially cook because I have a meeting tomorrow and I'm supposed to go to Orange Theory tomorrow and I'm not gonna wanna cook after that, but we shall see how I feel. Today, I made a very concerted effort to get some footage of me teaching, and I think I got some. The part of me teaching language arts, at this point, I don't know how much of it I got because I know at some point the camera died. But I know I got some footage for history. So what we've been looking at for the past 2 days is the Boston Massacre, and I am using this nearpod lesson. I went ahead, last year we had nearpod, like the basic version of nearpod, for free because of COVID. I think the district bought it, or I can't remember if nearpod was just providing it, but that term ran out, and so I was not going to renew it at first because like these platforms they cost money, and I want to say it was like $100 and something to increase the space, which I needed to do to actually be able to use more lessons than just a handful. So I decided to purchase it last week, and I'm going to use it this year and see if it's something that I think is worth purchasing, and if so, like we get reimbursed a very small amount of money, like $100 a year. Maybe that's something I'll use my money on in the future since the school is now paying for vocabulary. So I found this lesson on the Boston Massacre that I really like because it's talking about the Boston Massacre, but it also incorporates a Stanford Education History Group lesson that I did last year on, you know, witness accounts of the Boston Massacre and sourcing documents and the reliability of documents and what makes some documents more reliable than others. That lesson is integrated into this nearpod lesson, as well as like 2 separate video clips that depict what the Boston Massacre was all about, and then touches on the Boston Tea Party. And then of course nearpod just has interactive slides in between so that the kids are responding as you go. And so I knew that the lesson itself would take a couple of days, but it's taking a little bit more, which is fine because we're having good discussions, because there's a lot of discussion questions that pop up that you can relate to things that we've seen like in modern times. Like one of the questions was asking them, do you think, because it showed a memorial, or like, yeah, I think you would call it a memorial or a monument that's devoted to the Boston Massacre that's located in Boston. So one of the questions was asking them, do you think the government should spend funds, resources, etc., in creating monuments to historical events? So we talked about that, and then we talked about that in current times and what we've seen in the news in the past year or so, where people are on opposite sides of the fence when it comes to historical monuments, statues, and whether or not they're appropriate, should they be there or not. So in both classes we had pretty good discussion.
I feel like it's completely fair because without them we would have lost the war and we would have to leave and America wouldn't be here. Well, that's not a good thing. It doesn't matter. So we completely owed them the money that they gave us. They weren't being kind, they were saving our lives.
Someone might say, and I want you to think about this, like if it was truly just a giving, altruistic thing, are there any actions post the win of the French and Indian War that insinuate or that imply that Britain really is somehow, some way trying to make money off of this? Yes, they got the colonists to win the war, and yes, they protected the land, but is there anything that they've done in the course of the taxing and then taking the taxes back and then creating a new tax that makes you feel like at the end of the day they're trying to get their debts repaid, but they're also trying to exploit the colonists and saying we need money from you? And again, I told them there is no right or wrong answer. Like whatever you think is fine, just, you know, let us know what the rationales behind that. So we had some good discussions there. So it's taking a little bit longer. So that's what we've been doing in history. After that, we're going to go into the Revolutionary War. I always just show them this 10-minute video that is called The Revolutionary War Oversimplified. I basically just want them to know this all leads to war. There's a war. America gains its independence, and then we need to get into like the meat of it. Language arts, I am starting like the part of it that the kids are like, oh, because most kids don't want to write. So I am walking them through responding to a first read question on StudySync and letting them know that for me, these first read questions are significant assignments. These aren't just questions you can just throw an answer at and be like, I finished, I'm done, it doesn't matter. Like they pretty much are the equivalent of a quiz for me in language arts because they require a lot of thinking and thought. So I told them I'm going to walk you through the steps you should be taking and that these steps have been tried and true. Because I did this with third graders, and by the end of the school year when I taught third, I myself was impressed with some of the paragraphs third graders were writing just by being disciplined and following these steps. So all we've done in the past 2 days is we've tapped the prompt. So I showed them a prompt, and if you've been following me for years, this is the same thing I've done or that I did in third grade where they look at the prompt. Let me move this screen. It's movable, you know, that's what's nice about this. And this is what I took footage of me writing yesterday. I wrote the prompt down. This is the first question from the first read. What is the monkey's paw? What is Herbert White's attitude towards the monkey's paw? Cite textual evidence from the selection to support your answer. So I always tell them the first thing that we do is tap the prompt. T stands for topic. What is the topic? And really taking time to pause here to say, be careful because the topic is not the monkey's paw. That's what a lot of them would want to say. Oh, it's the monkey's paw. And then we discuss why that's super vague. That could lead you down the wrong path. Because if you think the topic is just the monkey's paw, then you're going to spend all this time talking about the monkey's paw. So we finally got to the point where we realized the topic is really Herbert White's attitude towards the monkey's paw. Yes, for a brief second, you might define what the monkey's paw is and tell what it does very briefly, but your focus is that. Audience is who are you writing this for? It's always going to be me, so they know that the language should be academic. And then we talk about the 3 purposes of writing, which is either to persuade, inform, or entertain. And letting them know, for the most part, if the prompt really wants you to write a persuasive response, it's going to say something that's going to tell you that. Like, write a persuasive response to, or give your opinion on, or persuade someone to. And if they want you to entertain, aka write a story, they're going to also tell you that in most cases by saying, write a narrative, create an original story. And so I said, if you don't hear those phrases in the prompt, you know you're not persuading, you know you're not entertaining, so you're informing / explaining. So we went over that. And then just being very explicit and letting them know that you know I read the story, I know I read the story, but your response needs to be written as if I've never read the story, or as if you would be giving this to someone who is unfamiliar with the story. So homeroom, we're a little bit further along, like we're ready to start writing our topic sentence and closing sentence, because that would be the next step in the process. And in my switch class, we just tap the prompt, and we haven't listened to the section of the story that we need to listen to and annotate in order to answer that particular question. So we'll do that tomorrow. But all in all, I'm feeling much better about the teaching today. I've been kind of down on myself because like my pacing, like things are just taking longer than what I want them to. And so us getting to read this book as frequently as I would like hasn't happened. Like in a perfect world, we'll get into this book at least a little bit every day. But several days had gone by since we had been able to read this, and I don't want it to go so far that we don't remember what we've read. So I conscientiously had to tell myself, did I say that right? I made a conscious choice to tell myself that you're gonna stop at a certain point to make sure that there is time for this. And it's okay if you didn't stop at the section of the lesson that you intended to, because there's always tomorrow. And that is just teaching. I don't know, I mean, your pacing's always slower, at least for me. Or you aren't always going to have this nice clean moment where you can say, okay, let's break here. But that's fine, as long as you know where you left off, so you know where to pick up tomorrow. So I feel better about that because I just stopped, and in both classes we got to hear a little bit, and they really enjoy the book, so I wanted to do that. But yeah, so all in all, a good day. I feel like there's something else I wanted to tell you and I'm just not remembering. Mood wise, I'm better, so that's always good. But I guess I'm gonna head out now because I don't remember what else I was gonna say. As far as like COVID updates and what that's like, it's like a rotating door. Kids are coming and going. They'll be here. Sometimes they go out. Sometimes they're in quarantine. Sometimes they're being cautious. And as far as managing the work they miss, I am just keeping my sanity and really being very selective about the work that they absolutely positively have to make up. Because if you try and have kids make up every single thing that they missed in this particular environment, where at any given moment or on any given day you have a couple kids out and could be out for several days, you will literally drive yourself crazy, because it's like you teaching two classes, like your in-person class and then like your distance learning class, and I just can't do that. So I make sure that they know the stuff that absolutely positively needs to be made up. But if it's like practice stuff or things we did together in class, I generally am just excusing them from that and just moving on with our lives. So that's pretty much how the day went. I'm gonna go ahead and end the vlog here and head out to this elementary school. If you enjoyed today's vlog, give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. And if you're not following me on Instagram, you know what I'm gonna say, head over there. Follow me on Instagram. And as always, I hope that you guys are well. And if you're not well, please be well. And I will see you guys tomorrow.